we're about to talk about like crime because that's a big thing. And I wanted to kind of explain to people my take on crime and why crime is different in different places. Yes, the races are committing crime at different levels. So you take a place like New Orleans, where I think we're 70% black, but we're more than 13%. You do have crime in somewhere like y'all don't know about Slidell, but that's a place in New Orleans, a place in Louisiana that has a larger percentage of whites than the city of New Orleans has. So they do have less crime. My thoughts is that two things are at play. One, you have blacks and whites. So if blacks are committing crime at a higher rate per capita, for those who don't understand, if blacks are committing crime at a higher rate and you have more blacks, that place is going to have more crime than somewhere where it's a higher percentage of whites because the whites are committing less crime. But I think another factor that plays into crime is population size. So sometimes when I'm driving and going between New Orleans and Louisiana, I look at how the cities are different. In New Orleans, we have a lot of things, we have a lot of people, and we have a lot of technology. So on the good side, when you look at a major American city, you see the good and you see a lot of good because there's a lot of people to produce a lot of good. But when you look at the lower class, what you also see in cities is you see a lot of bad and you see a lot of people able to produce the bad. So for example, in New Orleans, I think our population is like maybe 500,000. We have 10 projects. This is also, I don't know about Chicago, the numbers, but I know Chicago has a lot of projects and New York has a lot of projects and California, Los Angeles has a lot of Section 8. Most American cities have a very large number of blacks and sometimes Hispanics living in Section 8. If you have a large amount of people who are poor and living in a tough environment, they're going to behave differently than if you look at a small town place like Slidell or some of these small rural places. So I think that what happens is people see the lower class of the blacks and they start saying, okay, I see a lot of blacks doing something, I'm going to call it black culture. And then they don't see a lot of whites doing the same behavior. And what they don't realize is not that white people don't do the behavior. If you look at a small town and they got 10,000 people, they might commit 100 violent crimes or let's say 1,000 violent crimes. But then if you take somewhere that has 500,000 people, instead of them committing 100 violent crimes, they're 50 times as big. They're going to commit 500 violent crimes. So my thing is, I think we should work on putting things in perspective. It's very unfair to compare the lower class of African Americans, where you have a whole bunch of people doing things, and then compare the lower class of the whites, and you see that you're talking about somewhere that's the size of a playground versus somewhere that's like the mecca of the country, like New York. Let me see. I could maybe pull up the crime rates for people real quick. Rate at which blacks commit violent crimes compared to whites. Oop. Oop. If I would have been prepared, I think what I would have shown you guys was that blacks are committing violent crimes at about 3 times the rate of whites. Next show, I'm going to come in with the actual numbers because that's the thing. I want to be factual. And I believe that I saw somewhere online, I got to be more proud. I think I seen that Asians are committing crime at about 3 times the rate of whites. And that's why earlier I was saying, I think some of these things are based on intelligence because as you see, there was a difference in intelligence versus the groups. But I also think some of this might be inherent. So in a multicultural society, we're going to have to talk and see how every individual is slightly different, every group is slightly different. Instead of bashing one another, because I don't want people bashing each other, how about we get together and say we have similar problems, they're at different rates. Why don't we see what we can do to make adjustments to make some of the problems that are worse better?